Okay, so this is page 71. This is Genesis chapter 16. So what we're doing in here is Rashi, but I'm providing with these outlines the translation of the Rashi. And because we do it through the WhatsApp, so you have it. It becomes yours. You have it to look at later and check.
I'm sending it just that there is not such a good signal here, so it takes a little longer, but it's almost there.
Oh, it's almost, okay, fine.
Oh, you're saying a new one?
No, this is one you have from last time. You had it?
Okay.
From Thursday.
It's the same for Thursday, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so you have it? The guys have it? No, yes?
Sending.
Oh, it's still sending?
There.
I have it.
It's not the same.
Okay, good. No, those who had it from before, it's the same one as before. But several guys came in now, new, and they're getting it for the first time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so halfway down in this document, it says 16:2. That's chapter 16, verse 2, in the book of Genesis. Now let me start over again with that, so we'll get into the context. So in the blue book, it's on page 71. Sarai, Avram's wife, had borne him no children. Now, I think if we were writing this text, we wouldn't write it that way. Sarai didn't bear any children for Avram? Is that way you would say a woman doesn't have children? What you would say is she had no children. No children for Avram. But that's a hint, a very strong hint. That's the way she looked at it. She looked at having children as a way of providing her husband with an heir, her husband with a continuation, her husband with future generations. She didn't look at it as hers. She looked at it as something she was doing for him. Okay, now, she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. Sarai said to Avram, now watch her words. See now, Hashem has restrained me from bearing. He's made it impossible for me to have children. Concerned now with my maidservant, perhaps I will be built up through her. Do those words accurately express her thought, her feeling, her orientation, her goals? I will be built up through her. I don't think so. In verse 1, her problem is she hasn't provided a child for Avram. This doesn't mention Avram. This mentions, I'm a woman, I have no children. Help me. Do something for me. Really, she wants to do something for him. But she presents it to him as if he's doing something for her. And there's something very profound there. When you do a favor for somebody, the other person owes you something. It's a debt of gratitude. So the really profound way to do something for somebody is to do it and make him think he's doing for you. In that way, number one, he gets the gift, and number two, he has no debt of gratitude because he thinks he's doing something for you. And that's exactly what she's doing for him here. Very profound. Those who've been here from before remember that he did the same thing for her on a previous occasion. So it was a strategy in their relationship to treat each other that way. Okay, now, what does it mean, be built up through her? So look at the Rashi. This statement of Sarah teaches that a person who has no children is not firmly established. First of all, built up, meaning that if I don't have a child, I'm not built up. Now, you could think of that as poetry, but also there's a passage in the Gemara which expresses this in very concrete terms. The Gemara there is discussing what are valid grounds for divorce. both from the husband's side and from the wife's side. And one ground from the wife's side, it discusses is whether she has no children. Now, he might have children from a previous marriage, but she has no children. So the Gemara says, well, he has a mitzvah to have children, to procreate. Women don't have such a mitzvah in Jewish law. So why would her claim, please tell my husband to give me a divorce because I have no children? Why would that be a valid claim? She has no mitzvah to have children. And the Gemara says, suppose she says, I'm worried about my old age. Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to help me? If I have children, they'll help me. If I have no children, then I'm going to be alone. The Gemara says, that's a valid complaint. And that's her problem, that's her worry, then she should tell the husband to give her a divorce. So this is one way to explain this, what Rashi's talking about here. She's not built up, she's not solid, she has no foundation, she has no security for her old age. That's what would be in what she says to Avram. I'm not built up, and therefore help me. It's unstable, her situation is unstable. Now, the second question is, how will giving her handmaid to Avram as a wife build her up? What's one thing got to do with the other? Maybe she could charity, or she should help 10 people in an old age home. Why would giving her handmaid to Avram as a wife do that? So it says, through the merit that I admit her as a rival into my house. A man who's married to two women, although it's permissible in Torah law, it can, doesn't have to, it can create friction. It can create competition. Doesn't have to, but it can. So I'm risking a rival, I'm risking competition, and because I'm risking that, I'm worthy of some merit. Now, I just should mention, because people haven't thought this issue through carefully, people hear polygamy and the alarm bells go off. They see red, like the bull in the pasture. Their minds shut off, and they're ready to throw Molotov cocktails. But if you will just reflect that at all times in history, there are always more women than men. Because men reduced their population by silly pastimes like war and motorcycle racing and bungee jumping and other things. Right? There are always more women than men. If you enforce monogamy, then you, by law, are determining that some women can't be married. That's not obviously a good policy, especially if you're a good liberal and you want people to have opportunities and nobody should tell them what to do and how to spend their lives. The old-time liberals, not the progressives. So, that being the case, why would you, with the force of law, tell women that you can't be married to a woman to a man if they want to? If that's what they want to do, you're telling them no, they can't do it? Like, what would be the point of that? You want to provide safeguards? Sure, provide safeguards, but don't make it illegal. Especially in our case, where the first wife is telling the husband, "Please take the second wife." You say, "No, you can't do that." There's no obvious moral justification for taking that position. That shouldn't be able to be done. Okay, so now he has no children. She's asking him to take this woman as a wife. It will have a benefit for him also if she has a child. She didn't speak it out, but because that's not her subject. So she's doing something which should be good for him, and potentially risking a sacrifice for herself. And she hopes that in that merit, she too will be given the ability by God to have a child. Okay? Now, the verse says, Avram heeded, not bad in the English, to heed means to listen to and to take seriously and to act on. Doesn't just mean, capture the sound waves. Heeded the voice of Sarai, meaning that he didn't do for himself. He did it because she told him. Had she not told him, he never would have dreamt of such a thing. Even though he doesn't have a child. It's true he doesn't have a child, and she knows that. But he never would have dreamt of doing such a thing. She said she wants it. He's doing it because she wants it. You see an exquisite caring, each one for the other, in this relationship. Okay. Now the Torah says, so Sarai, Avram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her maidservant, after 10 years of Avram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Avram, her husband, to him as a wife. Now, if you have any experience with this text, you will see that it is extraordinarily elliptical, short, terse. Most passages leave you with 100 questions that you wish the text had addressed, and they're left out. When it puts something in, it better mean something. It better teach you something important. Otherwise, it's inconsistent with the style of the whole text. The text goes out of its way to tell you they were in the land of Canaan for 10 years when this happened. So what? Like, what do I care how long they were there? What does that got to do with the drama? What does it got to do with the future? With what is it teaching us? So Rashi, for whom this is a principle throughout, that when the Torah tells us something, it's got to contribute something important and significant. Not everyone follows Rashi in this or imitates Rashi in this. But that's one of Rashi's principles of interpretation. There's nothing trivial in the Torah. If you want to explain the plain sense of the words, you've got to explain why it's important. So he says like this. This is in your document again. After Avram had dwelt 10 years, the period appointed for a woman was lived with her husband for 10 years without having borne children to him, when he is bound to take another. According to Jewish law, a man has an obligation to have children. Now, if they're married for 10 years, and they have no children, no one knows where the problem is. It could be his problem, it could be her problem, it could be both of them. But you don't know. At this point, it's appropriate for the man to marry another woman so that if the problem was the woman's problem, he can have children and fulfill the mitzvah. Right? Now, you see in this context that we do tolerate polygamy, so it doesn't mean that if Avram and Sarah didn't have children and the problem of Sarah's problem, you have to divorce her and take another woman. You don't have to do that. But he should marry another woman. So the Torah, when it says after 10 years, is telling us a halacha. That 10 years is the period of time that you give to let natural reproduction take place, and if it doesn't, then it's time to take a step to try to test at least whether you can fix the problem. Yeah.
Do we keep this tradition today?
We definitely do. It is a halacha in Shulchan Aruch, but you'll see that there's a qualification coming up. Okay. Now, if you follow the logic so far, look at the phrase in the Torah and tell me what we haven't explained. I'll read it again. So Sarai, Avram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her maidservant, after 10 years of Avram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Avram as a husband. What haven't we explained?
It's 10 years dwelling in Canaan, not
The same.
Yeah, the geography. What's it got to do with the geography? And indeed, they were married for much more than 10 years. And those years outside, no one suggested that he take another wife. So apparently, this idea only applies inside the land of Israel. Now watch what Rashi says. 10 years Abraham lived after Avram had dwelt in the land of Canaan. As Abraham had been married to Sarah before he entered Canaan, this statement virtually informs us that the period he dwelt outside the land was not to be included in the number of these 10 years. For the promise, I will make of you a great nation, was made to him with the mention of being fulfilled only after he had come into the land of Israel. So when Avram was told to leave his position in Haran and to go to the land of Canaan, which is the land of Israel, he was told that. He was told, "You're going to be, there. I'll make you into a great nation." Before that, he wasn't promised. Before that, he wasn't promised children. So now these 10 years go by. It's because that's where he promised it. You would say, if I'm supposed to learn from here, that after 10 years, I have to take other measures. I can't rely on nature now to produce children out of this marriage. He should have said, Ribono Shel Olam, you're sending me to Canaan to have and telling me I'm going to have a family there. We're married now 30 years, my wife and I. We haven't had children. It's over. It's not possible for us to have children. I can't presume that I'm going to have children. No, the promise was only inside the land of Israel. Okay, that's how you explain the reference to the land of Israel in the context of the story of Avram and Sarah. In the context of the mitzvah, though, the mitzvah applies to Jews everywhere. So it's not obvious that this 10 years shouldn't apply in New York. And in fact, it's a matter of discussion. And there are those who say that wherever you have the mitzvah to have children, that's where the 10 years apply. And others say no, because living in the land of Israel is itself an important mitzvah. And if you're married outside the land of Israel for 10 years, maybe the reason why you're not having children is because you're living outside the land of Israel. And you have the right to presume that it's a problem between the husband and wife, and therefore you don't have to take another wife. Go move to Israel first. First move to Israel. Live in Israel for 10 years. And then after 10 years there, if it doesn't work, with the merit of the land of the mitzvah living in the land of Israel, then you should take another wife. This is one of the many, many indications of the special character of the land of Israel and the importance of the mitzvah of living in the land of Israel. And remember that you heard this in Yeshivat Ohr Somayach, which in the New York Times and other such bastions of true reporting will tell you that is in an anti-Zionist yeshiva. You heard here that you belong in the land of Israel. That's our position, it's the Torah's position. Of course, there's justification for not living in the land of Israel, but first class is to live in the land of Israel. Oh, you need a justification to be outside. It's not something you can take for as trivial. Okay, so now, we're together. If you want to ask questions, you can ask questions. I'm not opposed. Okay, so now the Torah says like this. Verse 4, he consorted with Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was lowered in her esteem. Okay, there are a lot of pronouns there. It means Hagar became pregnant. And when Hagar saw that Hagar became pregnant, Sarah, her mistress, Hagar's mistress, became lowered in Hagar's esteem. In other words, she started treating Sarah with no respect. Why do you think that happened? She became pregnant, okay. So what's it got to do with disrespecting her mistress? So Rashi explains, her mistress was slighted in her eyes. She said, as regard this woman Sarai, her conduct in private can certainly not be like that in public. She pretends to be righteous, to a righteous woman. She cannot really be. Now the last line here is cut off in my text. Is it cut off in yours also? What does it say?
It's there. It says, to have children I have had that blessing from the first union.
Right. So now, you have to understand, this is coming from a text before that those who were here saw. When they left Haran to go to Israel, it says they took along with them all the people whom they had converted to their way of thinking. Avraham converted the men, and Sarah converted the women. Belief in one creator who didn't just create the world and go on vacation, like the deists say, but who's intimately involved in the world, guides the world, there's divine providence. They converted the people to that way of thinking. Now, to do that, you have to believe that you know the truth and other people don't, and that by knowing the truth, you're in some kind of special superior position, and you want to share that superiority of knowledge and understanding with other people, you're presenting yourself as someone special. So Hagar said, if she didn't have children from Avram, when the two of them were together, no one could tell whose problem it was. But now that I've come to live with Avram, and I became pregnant, we know it's her problem and only her problem. Then she isn't who she pretends to be. In public, she pretends to be pious and close to God and representing God. If she were really pious and close to God, God would have given her children. The very fact that she can't bear, and as Sarai describes it, it's because God prevented me from doing that. They believe in divine providence. So then Hagar says, so you are a phony, because in private you must be violating God's will in a pretty dramatic way that He would deny you children. Okay? Now I didn't manufacture the rest of the notes here, so I'll take you through the story and the rest of the story, and I'll pick up a couple of Rashis which I think are important, and I'll tell them to you. So, 5. So Sarai said to Avram, the outrage against me is due to you. It's your fault. The fact that Hagar is treating me with disrespect is your fault. It was I who gave my maidservant to your bosom. When she saw that she had conceived, I became lowered in her esteem. Let Hashem judge between me and you. An extremely strong statement. By the way, this was, I would call it immoderate of her. She was punished for it. But let's think about where she's coming from. Hagar is treating me with disrespect. It's your fault. Why is it his fault? What did he do? He didn't do anything. They're living together and she became pregnant. That's what you expect. What did Sarah expect him to do to prevent this disrespect? So the answer that some commentaries give is very simple. Let's take Hagar's thought. If you really were pious the way you pretend to be, God would not have withheld children from you. Is that a true thought or a false thought? On the surface, it might seem like a true thought. If you are really pious and you're really serving God, then God will treat you with kindness and with favor, and certainly give you something which to every woman is extremely important. The answer is that thought is false. The Gemara says, the real reward for the good deeds that you do is not in this world. It's in the next world. And God may need for you to undergo certain stresses, to face certain challenges, in order to bring into the world a certain completeness, a certain type of human perfection. And if you're chosen to bring that into the world, so then there's no way in which you're failing if you live under those pressures and live under those challenges. On the contrary, that's what you were meant to contribute. Different people are put into the world to contribute different things. And this could be exactly what you are designed to contribute. King David wanted to build the temple. He served God in, he's like in the top 10 of all people of all time. He served God in an exquisite way. God said to him, no, you can't build the temple. Your son will build it. Why? Because you fought wars. So you think, okay, so what? All the wars he fought is because God wanted him to. Every one of them was an appropriate war. He conducted himself in warfare in exactly the way God wanted to conduct him. No critique of the way in which he did it. Yes, true, quite true, but God doesn't want the temple to be built out of a warrior. Not because you did anything wrong. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. Or similarly, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't witness the giving of the Torah. They didn't stand at Sinai. They weren't obligated in all the laws of the Torah. They only performed them voluntarily. Why? Nobody's greater than they were. How could it be that they were denied that opportunity? The answer is they weren't denied it. Their opportunity was to build the people from the beginning. That was their contribution to the world. To do that, you can't stand at Sinai. You needed a nation to stand at Sinai, not an individual to stand at Sinai. So it's not as if God was denying something good to them. They were chosen to have that position. Okay, let's come back to here, to Hagar's thought. If you were really pious, God would have given you children. As a matter of fact, Sarah was barren. Rivka, the next generation, was barren. Rachel was barren. So was Leah, only because Yaakov preferred Rachel to Leah, and she felt slighted. God gave her the ability to have children against her nature. That says explicitly in the verses, says that. He opened her womb because he saw that she was being slighted. All four matriarchs were barren. That's what it says in the Psukim. The oral tradition says that the patriarchs were barren also. All 7 of them were barren. Because the foundation of the Jewish nation had to be miraculous all the way through. It had to be miraculous all the way through. Every one of the births and every one of the births had to be done via a miracle. So Hagar is completely out of sync. She thinks it's a give and take, you do things for God, God does things for you. If he doesn't do for you, that means he doesn't like you. That's a very primitive concept. It's certainly not the Jewish concept. So Sarah's complaint is, why didn't Avram explain this to her? When they first started to live together, he should have said to her, look, you might become pregnant, even though Sarah isn't pregnant. You have to understand that even if you do, it's no proof that you're any better than Sarah, because he doesn't have to know this plan, but he can say, God has plans, and he runs the world, and it's not a simple give and take. It's not a simple you do for me and I'll do for you. It isn't like that. So don't draw any conclusions if you become pregnant that you're superior to Sarah in any way. Sarah, feels that Avram didn't prepare Hagar for this. Had he prepared her, then she wouldn't have drawn this conclusion that she was superior to Sarah. That's her anger against Avram. Okay, now the truth is, as I said, she expressed herself in an immoderate way, and she paid for it. But you understand where she's coming from. She said what her thought is, right? So now, Avram says to Sarah, this is verse 6, behold, your maidservant is in your hand, do to her as you see fit. I'm giving you permission. You can do whatever you want to her. Now, I'm going to tell you something which occurs to me. I didn't see it in any of the commentaries, but I'm convinced that there's something to it. Where you have in the English, see fit, the Hebrew says, do to her as is good in your eyes. You could say that's poetry. You could say, as is good in your eyes just means anything you want. But what he said is, do something that's good in your eyes. And I think there's an implication here. Make sure it's good. Think about it. Think about it. Make sure you can say that in your eyes what you're doing to her is good. I think it was a hint. Don't be carried away by your emotion here to go beyond what your mind would approve of as appropriate. Okay, what does she do? Sarah dealt harshly with her, so she fled from her. Always the pronoun. So Hagar fled from Sarah. She punished her in various ways, and Hagar fled. By the way, I should tell you, all the breaks in the English text are artificial. If you want to know where the Torah itself breaks up into paragraphs, look on the right-hand side and you'll see where there are spaces. Look on the right-hand side, the whole body of text has one space in the 4th line. All the rest of it is one continuous text. So don't read anything that is, it's a new paragraph. Not if it's in the English. You have to, only if it's in the Hebrew. And typically the English has many more breaks than the Hebrew does, because the English translator is convinced that your attention span is about 90 seconds. So he breaks it up for you. In the Hebrew, they trusted you to have 2-hour attention span. Okay, so she's running. Hagar is running. An angel of Hashem found her by the spring of water in the desert, at the spring of the road to Shur. Now, let's just check the Rashi here. Yeah, no, he doesn't say it. Okay. And he said, the angel said to her, Hagar, maidservant of Sarai. He calls her by name, but he also describes her position. You are Sarai's maidservant. Where have you come from and where are you going? Now, she's running. She has been Sarai's maidservant. Is she accepting that identity now? Maybe she's fleeing and doesn't want to go back. Maybe she's looking for a new life. The angel calls her that. You'll see that she has no problem contradicting an angel. You'll see that right away. And by the commentators point out, why didn't she drop dead of fright? Because in Abraham's house, angels were common. She was used to seeing angels. This was like, it was not upsetting to her, not shocking to her. Okay, so she says, I'm running away from Sarai, my mistress. We know who Sarai is. She says she's my mistress. Imagine her distress. I am her servant. She is my mistress, and I can't take it. I'm not looking to rebel. I'm not looking to escape. I just can't take it. There's a very profound statement here. Okay. And an angel of Hashem said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself to her domination. Now, as I've explained to the others, I'll repeat it here, when you have a repetition of so-and-so spoke and said ABC, and so-and-so spoke and said XYZ, why does it repeat and so-and-so spoke? Because it means there's a gap. It's not one long continuous speech. There's a gap in between. There's a wait in between, a pause. Okay? So here, indeed, it's a different speaker of each one. So, the first one says, he says, return to your mistress and submit to your domination. And now a new one says to her, I will greatly increase your offspring, and they will not be counted because of abundance. What happened in between? First one said, go back. And the second one said, I promise you a lot of children. What happened in between is she said, not on your life. I'm not going back. I'm not going back. Why did I run? I can't take it. I can't stand it. So, and we'll see in a moment why this. So now he says, I will increase your offspring. They will not be counted because of abundance. Okay? No deal. Nothing doing. So the angel of Hashem called to her and said, behold, you will conceive and give birth to a son. She calls his name Ishmael. Hashem has heard your prayer. He will be the wildest of a man. He'll have a great nation, etc., right? Anything catch your attention here? What does the angel say to her? Behold, what?
You have a son.
Yeah, but before that, behold, you will conceive.
Yeah.
That bother you? Why is she running, guys? Because she's pregnant, right? Because she treated her mistress with this disrespect. Mm-hmm. Right? So what do you mean you will conceive? So if you put two and two together, you get it. The pain and torture that Sarah used on her caused a miscarriage. That's why she ran. She was carrying Avram's child, and Sarah didn't allow it to happen. She caused a miscarriage. So when the angel says, go back, she says, you must be kidding. Go back? For what? For what? Then the next child, the one says, I'll give you a lot of children. Are you kidding? Don't you know what happened? I was pregnant and she caused me to have a miscarriage. I'm not going to have children there. So now the angel has to answer that. The angel says, you'll conceive And now he says, you'll have a child, and you call his name, and this is his future. With that kind of solid prediction, with all the details filled in, now she has confidence that's going to take place. That's what's going on here. Okay? And then, now, I read it to you. Behold, you will conceive, give birth to you shall call his name Ishmael. Because Yishma means to hear, and Aleph Lamed is the name of God. It means God hears. You should call his name Ishmael. For God has heard your prayer. Okay? And he'll be a wild ass of a man, his hand against everyone, everyone's hand against him. And over his brothers shall he dwell. Fine. Now look at 15. Hagar bore Avram a son, and Avram called the name of his son that Hagar bore him Ishmael. Put yourself in her shoes. How do you think she feels at this moment? That's what the angel promised. The angel said to her, she should call his name Ishmael. That's not what happened. Avram called his name Ishmael. The angel didn't speak to Avram, or maybe he did, but the promise is his name's going to be Ishmael, and Avram carries it out without her speaking to him. She's got to feel terrific. This is exactly what the angel promised. Okay, so this is the way in which the interaction takes place here. So now, this, and of course it says Avram was 86 when Ishmael was born. This is his first son. Up until this time, he hasn't had any children. And of course, at this time, Sarah remains barren. Yeah.
Well, why does it tell us Avram's age rather than Hagar's age? Because he was 86 when she had Ishmael. Did the Torah do that?
The Torah tells us only the things that matter, the things from which you could learn something important. When Avram and Sarah later have a child, we'll be told the ages of both of them. And we'll know then that they're 10 years apart. He was 100, she was 90. And there it's important because she was vastly beyond childbearing age. There's no reason to assume that Hagar was beyond childbearing age. We're not given her age, at least not in the verses. Not given. So in that case, it wasn't miraculous in any sense. A man can have fertility almost unlimitedly. There's no reason why a man has to. It's typical, but it doesn't have to happen. Right? With women, once menstruation stops, it's finished.
The Rabbi told us that the patriarchs also weren't fertile.
That's right.
This means that he gained fertility.
That's right. So of course, Ishmael has a role to play in all the things that happen, subsequently. So this business of losing the child is something that Rashi says. Now, the translation here is really quite interesting. Go back to 71. The angel says to him, he shall be a wild ass of a man. In the Hebrew, it's para Adam. And the commentators point out the grammar. If I have the word man and wild, so wild is an adjective, and man is a noun, and wild tells you what kind of man he would be. But in the Hebrew, the wild is the noun, not an adjective. So it's wildness in human form. The emphasis is on the wildness. And then the human form is secondary. That's the hint in the grammar, right? Now, whether Ishmael is related to the current Arab population is not obvious. Ishmael is identified with the Muslim religion, according in certain ways. Perhaps it's only a spiritual connection, not a physical connection. There's all sorts of intervening matters that would have to be settled. So I'm not taking a position on that. But you do, when you read about certain types of behavior in certain groups, you do get this picture that a certain wildness is it's built into the fiber of the people. When they do something wild, that for them is like a big success. It's the biggest expression of their humanity with their little h. You know, that you're human because you can tear people to pieces with your bare hands, because you can, right? Like the ISIS when they, decapitated the people. Now we're really something great. We can do something like that. And that's a kind of berserk wildness that affects it. At any rate, this is how Ishmael comes into being. Now, see, I only have a few minutes. Later, after Sarah has a child, take a look on page 97, just briefly. So Sarah has a child, Isaac, as you all know, and now they're growing up together, the two brothers. Verse 9. Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had born to Avram, mocking. The word in Hebrew, mitzachek, is a word which indicates degraded, powerful behavior. And it can be associated with various types of criminal behavior, but that's its connotation. So she said to Abraham, drive out this slave woman with her son, for the son of that slave woman shall not inherit with my son with Isaac. Sarah is saying, kick them out. The matter greatly distressed Abraham regarding his son. So there's conflict in the household. Husband and wife do not see eye to eye. So God said to Abraham, be not distressed over the youth or your slave woman. Whatever Sarah tells you to do, heed her voice. We saw those words. Abraham already heeded her voice beforehand. When it was taking Hagar to he's telling God's confirming that, heed her voice. Since through Isaac will offspring be considered yours. The son of the slave woman as well will I make into a nation, for he is your offspring. Now I had read this maybe 100 times, 150 times, and somebody brought to my attention the commentary of the Ohr Somayach. I realized that I missed the main point, even reading it 100 times, because I didn't pay careful enough attention to the words. Ohr Somayach asks, what is the basic disagreement between Abraham and Sarah? Where's the basis of the fundamental disagreement between them? Let's look at the words again. Sarah says in 10, drive out this slave woman with her son. Her son. For the son of that slave woman shall not inherit with my son with Isaac. The matter greatly distressed Abraham regarding his son. What's the disagreement?
Ishmael.
Who is he?
Oh.
Who is he?
Oh, wow.
She's saying he's not your son. He's not your son. We're not talking genetics now. He's not your son. He's the son of the slave woman. Avram says, yes, he is. He is my son. And that's why I'm upset with what you're saying. Now let's see who's right. Let's see who's right. So Avram woke. I'm sorry. So God says to Avram, be not distressed over the youth or your slave woman. Whatever Sarah tells you, heed her voice. Since through Isaac will offspring be considered yours. But the son of the slave woman, where do those words come from? Those are Sarah's words. God is quoting Sarah here, word for word. The son of the slave woman. Abraham, listen. The son of the slave woman. Just like Sarah said, not like you said, your son. You're wrong. She's right. That's absolutely beautiful. That's the way the Torah works. That's the way the Torah works. That was the fundamental difference. And now, when you talk about son, the word son in Hebrew is ben, and the commentators point out that ben is from the word bana, which means to build. What you are building in the world, what you will leave over in the world, the gift that you're giving to the world, the way in which you are constructing the world, that's coming through Isaac, not through Ishmael. And then he says, he's your offspring, Ishmael. He's offspring, Zerah, genetics, yes, that you have. And he'll become a great nation also, but he's not your ben. Not your ben.